Let me begin with a simple question. Are you living the life you chose or the one you settled for? That question sat with me for a long time uncomfortably, I might add, because most people aren't unhappy because they failed. They're unhappy because they never dared to start. Transformation doesn't begin with a plan. It begins with a decision. A deeply personal, sometimes inconvenient decision to stop pretending you're okay with okay. We are taught to chase goals, titles, paychecks, followers, but very few people ask, why am I doing this? What does it mean? What difference does it make? Transformation isn't about changing what you do, it's about changing why you do it. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I met someone who had everything on paper. He was a high-flying executive. Big house, bigger ego. Every morning he'd put on a $1,000 suit and drive a car most people would take selfies with. But every night he'd sit in silence, wondering why. Let me begin with a simple question. Are you living the life you chose or the one you settled for? That question sat with me for a long time uncomfortably, I might add, because most people aren't unhappy because they failed. They're unhappy because they never dared to start. Transformation doesn't begin with a plan. It begins with a decision, a deeply personal, sometimes inconvenient decision to stop pretending you're okay with okay. We are taught to chase goals, titles, paychecks, followers, but very few people ask, why am I doing this? What does it mean? What difference does it make? Transformation isn't about changing what you do, it's about changing why you do it. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I met someone who had everything on paper. He was a high-flying executive. Big house, bigger ego. Every morning he'd put on a $1,000 suit and drive a car most people would take selfies with. But every night he'd sit in silence, wondering why. Most people believe transformation starts with a plan, goals, timelines, action steps. But the truth is, none of that matters without a decision. A real, conscious, deep in your core decision to change. That's where transformation truly begins. We live in a world obsessed with strategy. We map out our futures, we set smart goals, we download productivity apps, and we read books that promise 10-step formulas to success. But all of that is just movement, not progress, if we haven't made the internal shift first. A plan can guide your steps, but only a decision can move your feet. Until you truly choose to let go of what's holding you back, to stop playing small, or to stop living someone else's version of your life, no plan will work. It's like trying to row a boat without pulling up the anchor. You can paddle all you want, but you'll stay stuck in the same spot. Making a decision means crossing a line. It's not the same as wishing or hoping. It's not saying, I want to be better. It's saying, I refuse to live like this anymore. There's a difference between wanting change and deciding you're done tolerating the life you've outgrown. That's the moment transformation begins, not when the circumstances change, but when you finally change how you relate to them. Let's be honest, this kind of decision is uncomfortable. It means confronting truths you've avoided. It might mean disappointing people who are used to the version of you that makes them comfortable. It means stepping into the unknown with no guarantee. But here's the thing, staying in a life that no longer fits you comes with no guarantee either. In fact, guarantees a slow erosion of who you really are. What keeps most people stuck isn't a lack of resources, it's a lack of resolve. We tell ourselves we'll act when we feel ready, when the timing is perfect, when we have more money, more experience, more certainty. But waiting for the perfect moment is often just a clever disguise for fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being good enough. But what if the real failure is staying the same? Look around at the people who inspire you. They weren't born extraordinary. At some point, they made a decision. They said, I'm going to live differently. And from that decision, everything else followed. The plan, the strategy, the discipline, it all came later. The defining moment wasn't when they reached the top. It was the day they finally said enough. When you decide to transform your life, it doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you're ready to start asking the right questions. You'll stumble. You'll question yourself. You might even want to go back. But the power of that decision, the real, unshakable one, will keep pulling you forward. Transformation doesn't require perfection. It requires commitment. It requires courage. And it requires the willingness to get honest about where you are and who you want to become. Once you've made that kind of decision, the plan becomes clear not because the road is easy, but because you're finally walking it on purpose. So if you feel stuck, overwhelmed, or like something's missing, don't wait for the plan. Make the decision. Everything else will follow up. When most people set out to change their lives, they start with what? What job should I get? What steps should I take? What's next? And while those are logical questions, don't lead to lasting transformation. They lead to movement, yes, but not necessarily in the right direction. Without clarity on why you're doing something, the what becomes hollow, exhausting, and eventually unsatisfying. The most powerful transformations begin not with action, but with intention. Not with what you want to do, but why you want to do it. The why is the foundation, your deeper reason, your belief, your sense of purpose. It's the emotional fuel that powers the journey. Without it, you're just checking boxes on someone else's checklist. You might achieve success by some external definition, but it won't feel like your success. Think about it. How many people do you know who have followed all the rules, hit every milestone, built impressive careers or lifestyles and still feel empty? It's not because they did something wrong. It's because they never stopped to ask, why am I doing this? They climbed the ladder only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. Starting with why keeps you grounded. It connects your actions to your values. It ensures that what you do reflects who you are. When your work, your relationships, your goals align with a deeper purpose, they give you energy rather than drain it. You're not just pushing through the day, you're pulled by something meaningful. It's easy to get distracted by the surface. We live in a world that celebrates productivity, hustle, and measurable outcomes. There's pressure to act fast, to do more, to keep up. And so we start with what? What's the next step? What's everyone else doing? What will make me look successful? But that kind of momentum is short-lived. Eventually, without a why, we burn out. Or worse, we achieve everything we set out to and still feel lost. The people who sustain impact, joy, and resilience over time are the ones who stay connected to their why. Their careers might shift. Their roles might change. But the underlying reason for what they do remains steady. That sense of purpose becomes a compass, helping them navigate uncertainty, make decisions with integrity, and persevere when things get hard. This isn't about having all the answers. It's about asking better questions. Why do I care about this? Why does this matter to me? Why do I want to create, build, lead, serve, or grow? Your why doesn't have to be grand or world-changing. It just has to be real. It has to come from within, not from what others expect of you. When you start with why, your life starts to feel more coherent. The choices you make begin to align. You stop chasing things that don't matter. You stop comparing yourself to people on different paths. You start to trust yourself more, not because you have a perfect plan, but because your direction is rooted in something true. And when challenges come and your why becomes your anchor, it reminds you why you started. It helps you push through discomfort and discomfort and stay focused when the way forward isn't clear. Without that anchor, even small setbacks can feel overwhelming. So before you figure out what to do next, pause. Go deeper. Ask why. Not once, but over and over again. Let that question guide your next step, not just towards success, but towards significance. Because a life built on why is not only more fulfilling, it's more powerful, more resilient, and more truly yours. Success is one of the most celebrated pursuits in our culture. From a young age, we're taught to aim high, work hard, and achieve more. We chase grades, job titles, promotions, followers, and financial milestones, all in the name of being successful. And yet, countless people reach those goals only to find themselves feeling strangely hollow. They've checked every box, hit every target, and built lives that look impressive from the outside, but inside, something is missing. That missing piece is fulfillment. Because success without fulfillment isn't really success at all. It's emptiness wearing a mask. Fulfillment is deeply personal. It's not about external validation, it's about internal alignment. It's the sense that what you're doing matters, not just to others, but to you. It's when your actions reflect your values, your work has meaning, and your life feels connected to something larger than just outcomes. Success on its own is a destination. Fulfillment is a way of being. One can be measured, the other must be felt. The problem is that we're conditioned to believe that once we become successful, fulfillment will follow. That if we can just earn more, achieve more, prove more, we'll go, eventually feel satisfied. But fulfillment doesn't come as a reward for hard work. It comes from doing the kind of work and living the kind of life that aligns with who we are at our core. Think of the people who appear to have everything, wealth, status, influence, but still feel anxious, restless, or disconnected. Their calendars are full, but their hearts are not. That's because success is often achieved by focusing outward on metrics, recognition, and results. Fulfillment requires the opposite. It asks us to look inward, to understand what truly brings us alive, and to have the courage to build a life around that. Many people stay stuck in the trap of success without fulfillment because they're afraid to let go of the identity they've built. They worry that stepping away from what looks impressive means failure. But there is nothing noble about staying in a life that drains you, no matter how successful it looks. True failure isn't falling short, it's climbing a mountain, only to realize it was the wrong one. Fulfillment often comes from the quieter moments, from the way you show up for your family, from the impact you have on others, even if it's not recognized publicly. from work that speaks to your soul, not just your resume. It's not always glamorous, and it's rarely loud, but it's what makes life feel whole. What's dangerous is how easy it is to confuse the two. We can spend years chasing goals that were never really ours, driven by the desire to be seen as successful rather than to feel truly alive. We sacrifice time, relationships, and even our health to reach a point that ultimately leaves us asking, is this it? That question doesn't come from failure, it comes from misalignment. There's nothing wrong with ambition. Striving for excellence can be beautiful, but it becomes meaningful only when it's connected to something deeper. The real challenge is not just to succeed, but to succeed on your own terms. To define success in a way that includes peace, purpose, joy, and contribution, not just performance. Fulfillment doesn't require a grand life overhaul. Sometimes it's a small pivot, a shift in mindset, a change in priorities, a deeper connection to your work or the people you love. But it starts with awareness, with the willingness to ask, does this truly satisfy me? Is this the life I want or the life I was told to want? Success may impress others, but fulfillment satisfies you. And in the end, it's not the titles, the trophies, or the applause that matter most. It's the quiet certainty that you lived in a way that felt real, meaningful, and true. In a world that often rewards appearances over substance, many people fall into the trap of perfection. They carefully curate their image, polish every word they speak, hide every flaw, and strive to meet an impossible standard. The result is often stress, burnout, and a sense of disconnection from others, from life, and most dangerously from themselves. The truth is, people don't connect with perfection. They connect with authenticity. It's not your spotless image that draws others, and it's your honesty, your vulnerability, and a realness. Perfection is a performance. It's driven by fear, fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. It's a shield we use to protect ourselves from criticism and rejection. But in trying so hard to appear perfect, we often push people away. No one can relate to someone who seems untouchable, who never struggles or makes mistakes. We admire perfection from a distance, but we trust authenticity up close. Authenticity means showing up as you are. It's the willingness to be seen in your imperfections, to speak your truth even when it's uncomfortable, and to let go of the need to constantly prove yourself. It's not about being raw for the sake of being raw. It's about being honest, consistent, and grounded in who you really are. When you live authentically, you create space for deeper relationships, more meaningful work, and a life that actually feels like your own. We are taught to measure our worth by comparison against peers' social media standards of beauty or success. But comparison thrives in the realm of perfection. It evaporates in the presence of authenticity. When you're rooted in who you are, you no longer feel the need to measure yourself against who someone else appears to be. You recognize that their path isn't your path, and that your value isn't based on how well you perform, but how honestly you live. There's a quiet kind of power in saying, this is me. Not the edited version, not the idealized one. Just me. That kind of honesty is magnetic. It allows others to exhale, to drop their own masks, to feel less alone. In a world full of filtered realities, authenticity is rare and therefore deeply valuable. Authenticity also builds trust. Whether you're leading a team, raising a family, or building a business, people will follow someone who is real over someone who is flawless. Why? Because authenticity creates safety. When people see that you're human, they feel like they're allowed to be human too. That's when real connection happens, not in polished perfection, but in shared humanity. The pursuit of perfection is exhausting because it's never ending. There will always be someone more successful, more polished, more seemingly put together. But authenticity, that's sustainable. You don't have to keep up an image or remember who you're pretending to be. You just have to stay true to who you are. And that's a much lighter load to carry. Living authentically doesn't mean you stop growing or improving. It doesn't mean you ignore your flaws or settle for less. It means you pursue growth from a place of self-acceptance, not self-rejection. You strive not to become someone else, but to become more of yourself. Perfection seeks approval. Authenticity creates connection. And in the end, it's connection that gives life its meaning. It's not how impressive you looked, but how honestly you lived. It's not how few mistakes you made, but how willing you were to grow from them. So let go of the illusion that you need to be perfect to be enough. Let yourself be seen, flaws and all. Because the world doesn't need another perfect person. It needs more people brave enough to be real. pretending we often look to the outside world to change our lives. We change jobs, move to new cities, set new goals, or chase different relationships, hoping that a shift in our environment will finally bring us peace, purpose, or happiness. But over time, many people find that even after these external changes, something still feels off. That's because lasting change doesn't begin outside, it begins within. External change follows internal clarity. Until you know who you are, what you value, and what matters most to you, the changes you make in the world around you will be temporary fixes. You can't build a fulfilling life on a shaky foundation. You need clarity about your beliefs, your purpose, your direction before your actions can lead to the results you truly want. When you're unclear on the inside, your decisions are reactive. You respond to pressure, to trends, to the opinions of others. You pursue goals that sound good but don't feel right. You say yes when you want to say no. You chase success without understanding what it means to you personally. This kind of living leads to burnout, confusion, and a sense of being lost even when everything looks fine on the surface. But when you have internal clarity, your actions align with your values, your choices begin to make sense. You stop seeking constant validation from the outside because you built a solid sense of identity on the inside. You know what's worth your time and what isn't. You can walk away from opportunities that don't fit because you're no longer afraid of missing out. You're committed to staying true. Clarity doesn't mean you have everything figured out. It means you've taken the time to ask important questions. Who am I? What do I believe in? What kind of life do I want to live? What am I no longer willing to tolerate? The answers to these questions give you direction. They become a compass, guiding your actions so that change isn't just random or reactive, it's intentional and sustainable. This kind of clarity isn't something you stumble upon. It's something you create through reflection, honesty, and often discomfort. It means facing parts of yourself you might have ignored, fears, wounds, outdated beliefs. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it. Because once you've done the work on the inside, the outside starts to shift in powerful ways. Relationships improve because you're no longer trying to be someone you're not. Your work becomes more meaningful because it reflects your values, not just your need to impress. You stop chasing everything and start choosing what matters. Your life starts to feel coherent, like all the pieces are finally clicking into place, not because the world changed, but because you did. Think of it like tuning a musical instrument. If it's out of tune, even the most beautiful composition will sound off. But once it's tuned correctly, the same notes become harmonious. Internal clarity is like tuning your inner life, your thoughts, values, beliefs, so that the actions you take start to create harmony rather than noise. So many people spend years trying to fix the outside, changing jobs, relationships, routines, but until they pause and turn inward, those changes won't stick. It's like painting over a cracked wall. It might look good temporarily, but eventually the cracks reappear. Real transformation begins when you stop painting and start rebuilding from within. If your life feels chaotic, confusing, or out of sync, don't rush to change your circumstances. First, get clear on who you are and what you want. Clarity doesn't guarantee ease, but it does bring direction. And with direction, even small steps can create powerful change. Remember, the world around you is often a reflection of the world within you. If you want your life to look different, start by seeing yourself more clearly. That's where the real change begins. One of the greatest illusions we carry is the belief that we need permission to start living the life we truly want. We wait. We wait for the right time, the right circumstances, the right approval. We tell ourselves we need more experience, more resources, more confidence. We look around hoping someone will say, yes, you're ready. Go for it. But the truth is, no one is coming to give you that permission. You don't need it. You never did. You're allowed to begin exactly where you are with what you have right now. The idea that we must be fully prepared before we begin is rooted in fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. We convince ourselves that there will be a perfect moment when the risk disappears and clarity arrives like lightning. But that moment rarely, if ever, comes. Most people who have made meaningful changes in their lives didn't start with certainty. They started with a desire, a discomfort, or a quiet inner voice whispering, there's more for you than this. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to wait for someone to validate your dreams. Too many people spend years waiting for an external signal, an invitation, an endorsement, a guarantee. But life doesn't work like that. The opportunity to begin is already yours. You just have to claim it. Starting doesn't mean leaping blindly into the unknown. It can be small. It can be messy. It can be one honest conversation, one written page, one changed habit. The size of the step. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you take it. Momentum is built through movement, not contemplation. Clarity comes from action, not overthinking. The courage you're waiting for usually shows up after you begin, not before. When you give yourself permission to start, you shift from passivity to agency. You stop living as a character in someone else's story and start writing your own. That shift is powerful not because it makes things easier, but because it makes you responsible. No more blaming circumstances. No more hiding behind not yet. You step into the truth that you are capable of creating your own path. The people you admire, the ones who seem fearless or successful or inspired, they didn't have a secret shortcut. They just decided to begin. They started without knowing if it would work. They started before they felt ready. They started when it was awkward, imperfect, and uncertain. But they started. And because they did, they grew. They learned. They became. There is no official gatekeeper to your next chapter. No one is sitting at the edge of your dream with a stamp of approval. The power to begin is already in your hands. What you need isn't permission, it's honesty. Honesty about what you want. Honesty about what's no longer working. Honesty about the fact that waiting hasn't brought you closer to the life you imagine. You don't need to know the whole path before you take the first step. In fact, you can't. The path reveals itself after you begin walking it. That's how life works. And the sooner you stop waiting, the sooner the certainty becomes real. So whatever it is you've been holding back, your voice, your idea, your next move, bring it forward. Not tomorrow. Not when someone else says it's okay. No. Give yourself permission to try, to learn, to fail, to grow, to become. Because the life you want isn't waiting for approval. It's waiting for you.